In the dead of winter, deep in the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, 9 experienced hikers set out on an expedition. They were young, strong, and skilled, ready to conquer the harshest conditions. But something happened that no one could explain. Days later, their frozen bodies were found, scattered across the snow, their tent mysteriously slashed open from the inside. Some of them were barefoot, half-dressed, as if they had run from something in pure terror. Some had crushed ribs, skull fractures, and missing eyes, yet no external wounds. One hiker's tongue was completely gone. No one saw what happened. No one survived to tell the tale. And to this day, no one can explain what truly happened at Dyatlov Pass. Was it an avalanche, a military cover-up, a supernatural force, or something far more sinister? Today, we unravel one of the most disturbing and unexplained mysteries of all time. Our story begins in January 1959. A group of 10 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, set off on a ski expedition into the Ural Mountains. Their goal? To reach Oderten Mountain, a journey that was supposed to be challenging but achievable. Among them were engineers, students, and athletes, young and full of life. They documented every step of their journey with journals and photographs, capturing their excitement and determination. The group consisted of 7 men and 2 women, all in their early 20s. Each of them was hand-picked for their experience in extreme conditions, and all were members of the Ural Polytechnic Institute's hiking club. They had completed expeditions before, but this one was particularly challenging. Classified as a grade 3 difficulty, the highest level of difficulty recognized at the time. The group was well prepared. They carried enough food and supplies to last weeks, and they planned their route meticulously. They even built a makeshift storage area along the way to lighten their load for the final ascent. Everything was calculated, structured, and organized. Nothing suggested that they would run into trouble. But then something strange happened. One member of the group, Ural, fell ill with severe joint pain and was forced to turn back. This twist of fate saved his life. As he waved goodbye to his friends for what would be the last time, he could have never imagined that he would be the only one to survive. The rest of the hikers pressed on, making their way deeper into the snowy wilderness. Along the way, they laughed, took photos, and wrote entries in their journals, some of which would later serve as haunting final messages. Their last known entry was made on February 1st, 1959. That night, they set up camp on Kolatsiakal, which means dead mountain in the local Mansi language. Despite a dense forest nearby, which could have provided shelter, they chose to camp on the open slopes of the mountain, a decision that still puzzles investigators today. From that point onward, they were never seen alive again. When the hikers failed to return, search teams were sent out. What they found was terrifying. The tent was discovered abandoned, eerily intact, except for one detail. It had been slashed open from the inside. The search teams expected to find supplies and personal belongings neatly arranged inside, but what they saw instead sent shivers down their spines. Everything was left untouched. The hikers' boots, jackets, food, and even cameras sat undisturbed, as if they had been abandoned in an instant. Footprints led away from the tent, but they weren't in a panic, at least not at first. They looked like normal walking footprints, until they stopped. The first bodies were found half a mile away, near the edge of the forest. Some were half naked, without shoes or coats, as if they had fled in extreme fear. 2 of them had curled up by a makeshift fire, their hands burned, as if they had been desperately trying to keep warm. The makeshift fire suggested they had enough time to try and survive. But why wouldn't they just return to the tent for supplies? The logs of the fire were charred, but the surrounding area was covered in thick, untouched snow. It was as if they had suddenly lost consciousness or been interrupted by something unseen. 3 more bodies were found later, including Igor Dyatlov himself. They were found frozen in twisted positions, facing back toward the tent, like they were trying to return but didn't make it. Dyatlov was found with his arms outstretched, fingers frozen into an unnatural position, as if he had been trying to hold on to something, or someone. Even more unsettling One of the hikers had blood smeared on his face, yet no visible wounds. Another had a small, eerie smile, almost as if frozen in a state of shock. But the most disturbing discoveries were yet to come. The last 4 bodies, hidden under snow for months, would only deepen the horror. 2 months later, the remaining bodies were found, buried under the snow in a ravine. And this is where the real horror begins. The first 5 bodies, while found in bizarre conditions, could be attributed to hypothermia and exposure to the brutal cold. But the last 4 told a far darker story. One hiker had his skull completely crushed. 2 had broken ribs so severe that it looked like they had been hit by a car. Yet there were no external wounds, no bruises, no scratches. It was as if something had crushed them from the inside, with an unimaginable force that defied logical explanation. Forensic experts at the time said that the amount of pressure needed to inflict these injuries would be comparable to a high-speed car crash. Yet there were no signs of external impact. It was as if something had compressed their bones without damaging the surface of their skin. And then there was Lyudmila Dubinina, the most horrifying case of them all. She was found kneeling in the snow, her mouth open as if she had been screaming, but no one would ever hear her voice again, because her tongue was missing. It had been cut out entirely along with her eyes, but the cuts were so clean and precise that investigators found it difficult to attribute them to wild animals. Some experts speculated that Dubinina was alive when her tongue was removed. This suggests a slow, agonizing end, something much worse than hypothermia. Adding to the mystery, their clothing contained high levels of radiation. Why? How did these hikers in the middle of nowhere end up radioactive? Was it something from the environment, or were they exposed to something far more dangerous? Even stranger, some of the bodies were found with deep orange skin and their hair turned grayish-white. What could cause that? A natural reaction to extreme cold, or something even more disturbing? There were no animal tracks, no signs of struggle, no indication of an outside attacker. Just pure, unexplained horror. So what happened? Theories range from scientific explanations to pure nightmare fuel. There is no official explanation for what happened at Dyatlov Pass, but over the years, many theories have emerged, each more chilling than the last. Theory number 1, avalanche cover-up. The official Soviet explanation was that the group was caught in a small avalanche, forcing them to flee the tent. But experts argue that there were no clear signs of an avalanche. The tent was still standing, and the footprints didn't suggest a panicked escape. Theory number 2, secret military testing. Some believe the hikers accidentally stumbled upon a classified Soviet military experiment. Strange glowing lights were reported in the sky that night, and some of the bodies had signs of radiation. Was there an explosion or secret weapon test? Theory number 3, infrasound-induced panic. Few scientists suggest that strong winds created low-frequency sound waves that triggered panic and confusion, making the hikers flee into the deadly cold. Theory number 4, paranormal or extraterrestrial involvement. The glowing lights, the crushed bodies, the missing tongue. Some believe that UFOs or an unknown force was involved. Theory number 5, the Yeti attack. It sounds ridiculous, but one of the recovered documents mentions a menk, a mythical Siberian creature. Some theorists claim the hikers were attacked by an unknown beast. None of these theories fully explain all the strange details, and that's what makes this mystery so terrifying. Shortly after the investigation began, the Soviet government classified the case. The official cause of death? A compelling natural force. No further explanation was given. But why would a government classify a case that was supposedly just an avalanche or a hiking accident? Why would they seal away the reports and restrict access to the site for years? Some of the original investigators came forward years later, claiming that key evidence had been removed from official documents. Others stated that Soviet officials pressured them to close the case quickly. What exactly were they trying to hide? One of the most chilling details is that some of the hikers' families noticed something strange during their funerals. The bodies had a deep orange tint to their skin, and their hair had turned white. Was this caused by prolonged exposure to the cold, or was it something far more disturbing? Then there were the strange reports of glowing orbs seen in the sky over the Ural Mountains that same night. Multiple eyewitnesses, including military personnel and local Mansi hunters, claim to have seen mysterious lights hovering over the area. Some theorists believe these could have been classified Soviet weapons tests, and that the hikers were unintended victims of an experiment gone wrong. The government shut down the entire region for 3 years following the discovery of the bodies. No one was allowed to enter. Why? If this was just a tragic accident, why restrict access to the site? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, what really made the hikers flee that night? The tent was slashed from the inside, as if they were desperate to escape. But what could have terrified experienced hikers so much that they ran half naked into the freezing cold? What made them choose to die in the snow rather than stay in the relative safety of their shelter? Even today, the case remains unsolved. No theory fully explains everything: the injuries, the radiation, the missing tongue, the glowing lights, the classified documents. And that's what makes the Dyatlov Pass incident one of the most chilling mysteries of all time. So what do you think really happened to those hikers? Was it a tragic accident, a military cover-up, or something far darker? Decades later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most perplexing and terrifying mysteries in modern history. Despite new investigations and modern forensic techniques, no single explanation fully accounts for everything that happened that night. In 2019, a team of scientists attempted to put the mystery to rest, claiming that a delayed slab avalanche was responsible for the tragedy. But the theory was met with skepticism. How could an avalanche cause crushing injuries without external trauma? And why would experienced hikers camp in an avalanche-prone area? To this day, conspiracy theorists, scientists, and skeptics alike continue to debate every chilling detail of the case. Books have been written, films have been made, but the truth remains buried beneath the snow, lost to time. Perhaps we'll never know what really happened on that freezing night in 1959. Perhaps the Ural Mountains hold secrets that humans were never meant to uncover. But one thing is certain: whatever happened on Dyatlov Pass, those 9 hikers saw something that terrified them beyond reason. And that may be the scariest part of all. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love uncovering history's darkest mysteries, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because trust me, there are even more chilling stories to uncover.